All right. Morning, kitty cats. Um, oof, fun topics happening in the corner lately. Just recently. I mean, I feel like a lot of things just came together. I just saw PVK. PVK just dropped his. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are watching his thing right now. Oh, it's members only, actually. So where are we at? 32. I'm almost done with it. Let's do it quick. Sorry, quiet. Uh, so I'm like 90% of the way done with it. We already have. Oh, you can't even see the views. No, you can. 135. What do we mean by religion? And that's so related to what Chris Howard was just talking about in his morning stream, which I put in a link. Um, Lorica Ups was in there. Chad was in there. Who else was in there? I was in there, and we were interacting about religion and idolatry and secularity. And so it's funny. It's funny how related all these conversations are. And then recently in my local estuary, we have a group chat, and man, we've been talking about a lot of these things as well. Zionism, eschatology, end times, man. End time stuff is coming back. It's so hot. It's so hot right now. What's up, Sartori and Ups? And the main thing that I'm interested in is the robustness or the fittedness, the load-bearing weight of the TLC of your own understanding. What's up, Almighty Om? Hey, I don't know. Hey, I don't know who you are. I don't think. I've never seen your handle before. I don't recognize it. So introduce yourself if you want. Maybe come in later when I open this up after my rant. I think the Jordan Peterson sphere, this little corner of your own understanding, this little group of online people and autodidacts and high contrarian, religiously interested, thinking, philosophy-minded type people who don't necessarily fit into easy sincerity culture boxes, one might say. Are we capable of having really complicated conversations? And I think so. I mean, that's a big reason. Oh, sweet. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for introducing yourself. OG Rose. Love that dude. Have not been able to talk to him yet. Someday. It's going to happen. Too busy talking to my peeps, my TLC peeps, my friends. Listen, Daniel, love a lot of your ideas. It's the same with Peter Rollins, but like I don't want to mainly talk to people about ideas. I have to talk to people. I have to talk to persons that I know, and there's got to be an overlap in Venn diagrams. Like you're gonna have to hang out in the places I'm gonna hang out. It's like, and this isn't like saying he has to, but quick aside. But it's just like if there's some. I'm just using this illustration to say like I'm the cute girl. But like if there's some cute girl that you like, if you want to date her, if you want to have a conversation with her, if you want to get to know her, getting to know you, getting to know all about you, you have to hang out where she hangs out. Go to the places that she goes, because otherwise you're never gonna interact. You know, I suppose you could try to become so awesome in some category of life that then she notices you in your own sphere. You got to enter into their sphere. So, all right, back to this. So, is the main point of this? I'm going to talk about some of the detail of the particularity, but I don't want to get caught up in the particularity. The big picture, the somewhat mosaic vision, in as much as I can articulate it, is the TLC capable of having conversations about really difficult things? And I think we've proven over time that we are. I mean, a lot of the verboten, unquestionable, sacrosanct religious topics and political topics, and because I mean, politics is the opiate of the masses. It is the religion of American secularity. Are we capable of having conversations that allow us conversations for the sake of heaven, as Chezi says? That as Chris said at the very end of his stream today, Are we able to not squelch the spark? He was using it in the context of children and their own individuality and their own who they are as a person. Are we able to not squelch that spark of their own personhood, the specific nature of how they are and how they're going to manifest in the world? Because we know with that there's going to come conflict, because their unique personhood is going to conflict with your personhood in some way, where until we are both holy, it won't work. And in order for us to both become holy, there's going to have to be conflict, trials and wars and conflict will come, but woe to them by whom they come. I think ultimately conflict is inevitable, but like the Irish comedian, which I heard from Peter Rollins, Dylan Moran, said, war is the inability to have conflict. So can we have meaningful conflict for the sake of heaven in the TLC about really hard things? I think we've proven, we've had our bumps and bruises. I think we've proven that we can, because we'll talk about, what, good grief, what subjects do we talk about that I just could not have. A lot of the religious conversations that I found myself having difficulty in church having conversations about, differing perspectives on the doctrine of hell, differing perspectives on the atonement, differing perspectives on Christology, differing perspectives on, we've done this in the corner, differing perspectives on Trump and the election, differing perspectives on COVID, differing perspectives. And has YouTube opened up? I heard recently they've opened up that, even if I say that COVID, is it gonna be flagged? I think I heard recently that YouTube has adjusted their thinking. Maybe they've evolved. Maybe they are opening up to having conversations for the sake of heaven. I think we can. And I know in my own estuary, some of these conversations were coming up because, and I don't know a lot about them. I really don't. I feel like in general, I'm a generalist. I know enough about a lot of things to be dangerous. I am not an expert in anything. That's something else we talk about in the corner. What is an expert? Do you just trust the experts? Well, which experts? A hard problem of all perception. Which experts do you trust? Ultimately comes down to faith. Which experts do you trust? Just the ones that have the approved magisterial rubber stamp of approval? Are those the ones that you trust? And which magisterium? The Catholic magisterium, the approved, the scientists, science says, the certain studies, which studies? This is the problem with all this stuff. So anyhow, PVK. So Chris Howard this morning in his video, let's start there. Let's talk about all these different videos. He was having a big conversation, at least the tail end that I caught, and while I was interacting with all the persons previously mentioned, they were talking about secularity and idolatry and religion. Are we capable in all? This is why TLC works somewhat, because it is so diverse from the sincerity culture confessions that we all hold to, whether it's explicitly religious and this religious tradition, because we have Protestants, we have every brand of Protestant, we have Jews, we have different, well, all of our Jews are basically Orthodox, aren't they? I don't know if we don't have any Hasidic, I doubt, or Reformed Jews around. I bet there's some Reformed ones. They're probably just not out of the lurk. We have Orthodox, and Orthodoxy, as we've learned, is incredibly diverse in many different perspectives. There isn't the same. I had that live stream about the Catholic magisterium versus Orthodoxy, and which was more personalist. We have many different, and contrary to a lot of thought, contrary to a lot of perspectives, I think we have a pretty rich political diversity within TLC. It probably leans libertarian right-ish. Like but we do have a somewhat strong, although not as outspoken and not as frequently creating content. Well, I mean, Mark Parker, though. Mark Parker's a diverse perspective that is definitely not libertarian right. So we have this diversity, and I think that diversity, that ideological diversity, because that's what I would call that, ideological diversity, because I think it's rooted in your self-identity and your self-aware, conscious, egoic attachment to a set of ideas, because that's how you self-identify, right? That's what it has to be. But because that's so diverse, and because there isn't an overarching one that makes everyone conform to it, hence the flotilla, hence no top-down coercion that like you have to think these things, it allows for us to have, I think that is part of the medium that allows for us to have these conversations for the sake of heaven, and these ongoing conversations, because that is, it makes me think of that the Jordan Peterson evolutionary biology gorilla analogy that he says is like, if you have an alpha chimp, an alpha gorilla, chimps and gorillas are different, right? Chimpanzees, gorillas, anyhow. If you have an alpha primate that dominates all the betas constantly, the smaller males, if he beats them every time, then all the betas will come together in a group and overthrow the alpha and gang up on him and beat him and kill him. So the alpha, in order to maintain his alpha thing, he has to beat the betas, but somewhat in a playful way, and sometimes kind of let them win, or else they become discontent and they rise up against him. So and at least the alpha, I don't this is not mapping perfectly, so just be gentle with me. Can we sometimes be willing to lose the battle for the sake of winning the war? Like, can we lose some of the games that we're playing for the sake of continuing relation? Vervaeke talks a lot about this. Can we, if the relation is primary, and Jordan Peterson will talk about this with a husband and wife, like, you don't win in an argument with your wife. A wife doesn't win in an argument with her husband. If it's a zero-sum game where I win and you lose, that's not winning, where the relationship is primary. If the relationship is primary, you don't want to just beat the person you're talking to ideologically. You want to maintain the strength of the relationship so that you can have ongoing relations. And in a marriage, that's obviously clear. A husband doesn't want his wife pissed off at him because he's beaten her in whatever way, either spiritually, psychologically, physically, because then she isn't going to want to play with him. And husbands want wives to play with them so that you can procreate. Maybe just have sex. Divine eros, right? Because I think ultimately the goal, this to me is the telos, or one I don't know, is it the main telos? The main telos of creation is co-creation. Is, I think what God wanted to do in creation was make creators. Because then we are like God in the way that we're supposed to. And then maybe the knowing good and evil comes after. When we become creators like God, perhaps then we understand good and evil as we're supposed to, knowing as we are known. So, all right. One other thing that I wanted to mention, I think I want to open this up, because I mean, the big idea is like, can we have these conversations where we are valuing, right? Let's say the explicit value of wanting to have ongoing conversations and maintaining the relation. That is the most important thing, not winning ideological conversations, although those are important. I'm not saying they're not important. I'm not saying the propositions aren't important. They are important. They're just not ultimately important, because the relation has to be more fundamental, or else it's an eye for an eye until the whole world is blind in our ideological battles of facts and logic. And so is that primary? And then like that's the peak of the pyramid, the eye of Horus, right? The fractal, the eye. So you can see all this stuff. And then, because if your eye is pure, your whole body will be full of light, right? The eye is the lamp of the body. But then the lower level things are like these individual conversations that we can have. So like PVK was talking about Peter Thiel and Ross Duth Hat. I need a hat. We're talking about, I mean, what the heck were they talking about? Technology, end times, new world order. Because I mean, and these are conversations that were very related to things that were just happening in my estuary group. But like Peter Thiel is basically positing is like these new world order people are going to want these wars to happen and nuclear bombs to happen, and then they're going to posit like, oh, we need the new world order, the one ring to rule them all for the safetyism, right? The value of safetyism to keep us all alive, right? Because like if we don't have this powerful thing on top controlling everything, the one ring to rule them all, we're going to kill ourselves with nuclear weapons. And so in that sense, it's like the nuclear weapons are a foil or a gimmick or a way to usher in this new control. I think that's what Thiel is getting at. And I don't know, there's so many. This is why we need diversity in the corner too, because I know there are these people in my estuary. There are people that are very concerned, and Nate Heil, if he shows up, maybe Nate will show up. I know Nate has said recently that he has fears of the fascistic, woke right, new right, with people like Peter Thiel, who are going to use Rene Girard and very complicated high-level Christian argumentation for the purpose of Antichrist. Because Nate said once, I don't know if he still thinks that he could see them ousting Trump and putting forward Vance as like the technocratic president of like becoming the Antichrist to lead the New World Order. Listen, now that I'm away from growing up in the satanic panic of the 80s and 90s, and at one point I owned every single hardcover book of the Left Behind series, Jerry B. Jenkins and Tim LaHaye, right? I read all of them. And they used to play videos at church of like the rapture and the tribulation and revelation, and like there's guillotines and you're gonna, take the mark of the beast so you can buy and trade or else they'll cut off your head. And I used to have nightmares about this stuff all the time. I think I'm kind of past at least I'm not saying like I would be at peace if that sort of thing happened. I have no idea. I'm agnostic about all of it. But I'm not a child anymore where I live in conscious fear of those things. I'm probably too busy and tired to be in fear of those things all the time. But it's so interesting because I went through the period of growing up where I had like existential fear of this stuff because this is what I was being told by primarily my mother and the church and stuff. And then I kind of grew out of it and learned a lot of other things and realized like, oh, this is coming out of some of the history of it and dispensationalism, and oh, there's other perspectives on it. And, there's all these different perspectives on Revelation, the end times, and there's like preterists and there's amillennials and there's postmillennials and there's premillennials, and there's a diversity of thought on it. So there's a way of that assuaging angst about it all. And I largely haven't thought about the book of Revelation at all, outside of the Whitestone name. The Whitestone name is in there. That's the name of my channel. Outside of the doctrine of hell, I haven't really thought about the book of Revelation as it applies to politics and end times eschatology for a long time. but it feels like all those topics are coming back pretty hot. And I just posted in my Signal group chat with my local estuary, because they were talking about all sorts of things that I'm not really following, mainly because I don't have time and because I guess I'm willing to talk about an estuary, but I'm not going to engage with it, especially in a text-based chat, because I just don't have the bandwidth to do that. But I just posted Matthew 24, like the whole of Matthew 24, which is signs of Christ's return. And there's two verses in particular that stick out to me. One of them is verse 6, "You will be hearing of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not frightened, for those things must take place, but that is not yet the end." So that's one thing. And then a verse toward the end is verse 44. So it's talking about like when the Son of Man, be ready for his coming. Therefore, be on alert, for you do not know which day your Lord is coming. This is talking about the second coming of Christ. But be sure of this, that if the head of the house had known at what time of night the thief was coming, he would have been on the alert and would not have allowed his house to be broken into. For this reason, you must also be ready. So it's just saying, be vigilant for the end. For this reason, you must, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour when you do not think he will. So then those verses just make me think like, okay, so there's going to be wars and rumors of wars, but don't be frightened. These things have to happen, but it is not the end. That seems like kind of where we're at. But that's kind of always where we're at. I mean, it seems like there's always wars and rumors of wars, but this feels like a heightened thing, but then it kind of always does, right? This is the eternal permeating the temporal, I suppose. But then it says, you do not know what hour he's going to come. And then I think of the Sermon on the Mount is don't be anxious, God's going to take care of things. But then, then this is one of those religious paradoxes, right? How do you be vigilant and be ready, but yet you don't know the hour, and also like don't have anxiety about tomorrow? So how do you be vigilant and stay ready, but not worrying about tomorrow? And then I also just think practically, if you think about like spheres of responsibility and influence, number one, I can't control what you think, what anyone thinks. I can only sow seed. I've talked about that a lot. I can just say what I think. Jordan Peterson says this, say what you think, let the cards fall where they may, which is easier said than done. I think that's an aspirational thing for even Jordan Peterson. I don't think he often does that because he gets worked up and worried. Because like if you are bearing anxiety and bad fruit, you're obviously not letting the seeds fall where they may and let God give the growth. You're worried about it. So you're not doing that. You're the fruit of worry in you and anxiety, and the sky is falling and we have to change everyone's mind. Well, that's evidencing to you that you're not really trusting God. But how do you, I guess that's maybe a good question. How do you be vigilant for the coming of Christ without worrying about the end times and wars and rumors of wars? And so what does it mean to be vigilant? I guess what's coming to mind for me initially is pay attention to what you should be paying attention to, cleaning your room, taking care of your family, Ecclesiastes, working, resting appropriately, taking care of your body, living a hidden life is probably what I would say. Not having some sort of savior complex where you can think you can save the world by becoming great necessarily. That doesn't mean don't try to become great, but it also means like have humility. Do not sit in the high places, and at the right time, God will exalt you. So it's just like do the things that you are called to do every day. Take the next right step, as Elsa says in Frozen 2. And probably above all else, try to be honest and speak the truth in love. Because, the Gospel of or the Epistle of James says, like, if you can, like, great ships are controlled by a small rudder. If you can control your tongue, I mean, what does James even say? I mean, he makes, because it says the tongue makes great boasts, but like James says, like, essentially, if you can control the tongue, you can, like, what does he say? You can do almost anything, right? Isn't that James 4? God, I'm just gonna read some of James 4 because I love this thing. I had parts of it memorized a long time ago, but what is the source of quarrels and conflicts among you, right? War is the inability to have conflict, or in 1 Corinthians 11, right? 13 and 15. I think that's what it is. It talks about the difference between divisions and schisms, and it says, of course, there must be disagreements so that you can figure out who's approved. There has to be differing opinions, but there ought not to be schism. You should not actually divide over it, right? So what is the source of quarrels and conflicts among you? Is not the source of your is not the source of your pleasures that wage war in your members? This is why the NASB is not flowing English. You lust and you do not have, so you commit murder. You are envious and cannot obtain, so you fight and quarrel. You do not have because you do not ask. You ask and you do not receive because you ask with wrong motives, so that you may spend it on your pleasures. Dear Lord, just give me that Ferrari so I can drive people to church, Make me rich. Give me the burden of being rich so that I can be tested with wealth. It's like, you don't want that. You want to spend it on your pleasures. And that's why God's not giving it to you, because you're asking with wrong motives. You adulteresses. You do not know that friendship with the world is hostility toward God. Friendship with the world is enmity with God. That's another translation. Therefore, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God. Ooh, this is a line that I want to bring up. We'll go back to James, but Dr. Shane J. Wood, brother of Jordan Daniel Wood, who I very much like a lot of his work in theology on St. Maximus, that the word of God, very God, wills always and in all things to actualize the mystery of his incarnation. Like that line from Maximus's Ambiguum is like, says pretty much everything from a Christian perspective. That incarnational thing is why I think, well, I'll just say this. I think a lot of reason that people don't understand my theology is because, and I'll just posit this, I know this is this hubristic to say, but it's also aspirational for me, is because they don't have a sufficiently incarnational theology enough. If we really understood the incarnation well, I think we wouldn't be confused. Okay. Anyhow, so Dr. Shane Wood, Nate just had him on Grail Country, and they talked about, and they said a line in there. I have it pulled up here. I'll share it, and then we'll get back to James, and we'll finish it, and then I'll open it up, because that's enough of me talking. Let's go. Dr. Shane Wood said, get over here. I don't need your ads about whatever. So this one is good. Jensen's line about time being a double helix with Christ being the center. I thought this was cool too. It made me think of Sam, and I shared this with Sam, but I don't know if Sam ever saw it. He didn't respond to me. Sam's been busy. He said, then Dr. Wood comments about a conversation between himself and a friend about the transfiguration, where Moses and Elijah may be appearing outside of our chronos experience of space-time, where Moses would be on Mount Sinai and Elijah could be somewhere else, yet they're present together in the transfiguration. So I was like, isn't that just such a crazy idea that from a Christian perspective, potentially, when Moses comes back from Sinai and his face is shining, it's because he's seen Jesus Christ in the transfiguration. That's what he saw. In seeing God, the God-man, his face was shining from the transfiguration, and he comes back, and then he has the shining face that he then veils backwards in chronos time, because Christ is the center of time in a Maximus way of understanding, right? Christ creating from the cross, John Bear. Anyhow, that's trippy. But this is what I want to talk about. So Nate said Emil Bach and Sergei Bulgakov want to read the Revelation of St. John. So again, Revelation end times as a New Testament version of what is happening in Genesis. And so again, that's kind of the same thing. Revelation is the new creation, which is a retelling of Genesis, but it's actually the same thing because it's new creation, second creation, of which, from a Christian perspective, Christ is at the center of, because the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is the same tree in the garden. And then who is it? Bulgakov that said that like, no, I'm trying to think. There's some Orthodox person who I think posits, or somebody that posits this. Anyhow, all that's a kind of a fascinating idea, right? Okay, let's go back, finish James. I'll open it up. So friendship with the world is enmity with God. Or do you think that the scripture speaks to no purpose? He jealously desires for the spirit which he has made to dwell in us. I don't know. What verse are we quoting here? No. What are we quoting? Give it to me. It should tell me what that passage is, but I don't know how to work this Bible app. Sorry. What is it, Jews? Tell me, RJ Chazi. He jealously desires the spirit which he has made to dwell in us, but he gives a greater grace. Therefore, it says, God is opposed to the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Submit, therefore, to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. And earlier on in James, he talks about what that means, double-minded. You're tossed to and fro by every wave of doctrine. You're of two minds, right? The gnomic will, this or that. The discursive reasoning mind. What should I do, this or that? That's not what the holy person doesn't think. Do I do this or that? They just do. They just know. They just are. Doesn't mean there's no struggle, but they just are. Because being holy is hard. Okay. Be miserable and mourn and weep. Let your laughter be turned into mourning and your joy to gloom. Humble yourselves in the presence of the Lord, and he will exalt you. I mean, repentance, maybe? You know, I've heard in the corner where we're low on repentance. We don't advocate for enough repentance. Every kind of repentance. Behavioral repentance, intellectual repentance. We need all the kinds of repentance. Do not speak against one another, brethren. He who speaks against a brother or judges his brother speaks against the law and judges the law. But if you judge the law, you are not a doer of the law, but a judge of it. What a baller line. I mean, seriously, he's just like, oh, are you the judge of the law or a doer of the law? What are you supposed to be doing? Judging it? Oh, I thought you were just supposed to do it. So don't be like worrying about the log or the speck in your brother's eye, right? Take the log out of your eye. Do the law. Be the law. Be the incarnate law. Because that's what it means to be a Christian, right? Because that's what we would say. Jesus Christ is the halakhic man. He is the incarnate law. That's what a Christian would say. He is the law embodied. The Torah embodied. Sorry, Jewish. I mean, we disagree, obviously. There is only one lawgiver and judge, the one who is able to save and destroy. But who are you to judge your neighbor, right? That's your lower back tattoo. Only God can judge me. James had a lower back tattoo. Only God can judge, right? Because we're doers of the law, not judgers. Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to such and such a city and spend a year here and engage in business and make a profit. Yet you do not know what your life will be like tomorrow. Listen, wars and rumors of wars. You don't know. You don't know any of this stuff. Sky is falling. Listen, sky is falling people. You don't know the future. Instead, okay, you are just a vapor that appears for a little while and then vanishes away. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and also do this or that. which is a Christian practice. I mean, I like to say that. It's a little phrase that is nice to tack on to things, like when you're making plans and you just tack on God willing. God willing. Are you going to be there? God willing. I plan to, but I don't know the future. But as it is, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. Therefore, the one who knows the right thing to do and does not yet do it, to him it is sin. Oh no, Christian relativism. Meow. That's also like what McMo was talking about, right? From Romans 15. Okay, I'm going to open this up. The last quote I actually wanted to bring up, though, is I brought it up on Chris Howard's stream this morning, but so Shane Wood, in that video with Nate, he also said that this is what a great line. I'm going to write it in here, okay? And then I'm opening it up. Here it comes, right? Self-preservation is the grammar of evil. I think that's a very succinct way to say it from a Christian understanding. And this is like Hezi and I have had these conversations where, this is one of our disagreements, is like, for a Christian, self-preservation is the grammar of evil because we are a Christian, because I follow Christ. He did not seek to self-preserve himself. I would say fundamentally, you cannot be a Christian if you seek for self-preservation, even through the mechanism of your ideological belief in the resurrection. If you seek self-preservation through your ideological self-identity to the doctrine of the resurrection, interestingly, it's an Antichrist thing. All right. Let's open this up. I see that I have fun people here. Fun, good people. Let's say this. I got this all the way back to Burn Power, but like I'm just gonna leave that quote up because it's good. Burn Power talked about tell me if that works. I'm gonna pin it because I maybe put a weird space in it or something. But Burn Power said, he talked about the idealization, the idolatry of fun. And so now even with my kids, because everybody says that, like, do you have fun? Have fun, have fun, 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 fun. And I say, have a good time. Because you can have a good time and it is not fun, but it's good. Have a good time. Well, that's me. It looks like it's working, the pin. I will look at comments until anyone comes in, if anyone comes in. Let's go. And I'll say my hellos. William is here. Al is here. Hello. Hezi is here. Hello, my friend. Yes. Essentially, in my understanding, that's being a Christian, right? Well, okay. So every Antichrist thing is also a Christ thing, though, right? I mean, there is a distinction. Right? I mean, the Antichrist is what's set against Christ. And to be set against Christ, I mean, what is Jesus Christ? Well, he's not someone who seeks self-preservation. And so to be Antichrist would be seeking self-preservation. And I think the Bible says, right, if you seek to save your life, you will lose it. But if you deny yourself and take up your cross, you will find your life. But it can't be in some weird mechanistic thing. It won't work. Look at who we got. Look at who we got. John Jones.
Hello.
What up, buddy? Hey, look at that. Twofer.
What's up?
Hey, guys.
Hello. How goes it?
It goes all right.
I'm at work right now. Don't tell anybody.
Okay, I won't. Man. Can you guys stand next to each other so I can see you physically together in real meat space and see how tall everyone is? Oh, man. Look at McMo.
I'm short, man. He's
okay.
Normal height, normal human being.
5'11", just under 6.
Yeah.
All right.
Make medium.
Make medium.
Yeah. big boy. Isn't it? So, it's so wild to see like that kind of contrast when all you've ever seen is this.
Yes, yes, it's the three dimensionality. It's wild. It's so cool.
Oh man,
It's so
it is great.
Yes,
I'm
we're
happy. I'm happy you came on. I'm happy you're there.
yes. I don't want to
How's
sideline. I don't want to totally upend the conversation though. You were talking about.
Oh, we'll come back to it. I mean, we can chat about, you hanging out with McMo and seeing people. And is his wife really as great as he always says she is?
Yeah, she actually is.
Actually,
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, she cooked us a good dinner last night.
Oh, nice.
He's
Sounds
yes.
like a good wife. What'd she make?
She made pasta with Italian sausage.
Ooh.
Yes.
custom marinara.
Ooh, nice.
Yep. Meat doggo.
I'm always checking out I'm always customizing a little bit because recipes are like, except with baking, I'm currently trying to make sourdough, and because it's all the rage, and I should have been doing it a long time ago, but I have went through different phases where I wasn't eating that much wheat and bread, but it's hard to make homemade sourdough, man. It's finicky.
Yeah, my mom's been playing with it for a couple of years, and we were just at Joy's house not too long ago. Last week we were at Joy's, and she's been doing some bread baking as well.
Wow.
Yes. It's been kind of like overwhelming. Like there's so many meeting people and like just going from place to place. It's very
Yeah. So who all have you met so far? Tell us some names that we would know.
We have met. Oh gosh, we've met. Michael Martin,
Okay.
and we've met Joy, and those are
folks.
yeah. We went to a couple of ashtrays, but of the TLC people, those are probably the two that
RJ,
you know. RJ, yes, RJ in the chat.
David B.
Nice.
David B from the Discord, yes.
Oh wow. So like
Yeah,
he's no David B. Okay, I'm not thinking.
Not
I'm thinking
not
Bushido.
Bushido, not Bushido, the other one.
Why Michael Martin? I mean, he's not East Coast. You wouldn't have made it over to like Michigan yet, huh?
He's we went like from Connecticut to up to Michigan basically, and then now we're going down the East Coast. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And Joy's kind of DC-ish, right?
Yes. Yep. Just outside of DC. We hung out with her for a number of days.
Nice.
And yeah, it's been wild. So much. Highly recommend it, y'all. Everybody should do this.
Yeah. Maybe
Perhaps.
maybe in another life. Or maybe in the future, maybe in my retirement I could. But Yosef's over DC-ish. He wasn't around?
I think Yosef's actually closer to Atlanta. Is he not? I could be wrong.
I thought he was DC-ish. Somewhere over there.
There's definitely a lot of people who we should probably meet up with as well. Like we're just like, oh man, we should have met. Like there's a couple people in the Indiana area where the thought we didn't think until it was too late.
Yeah, Ron Copperman's in Indiana.
Yeah, and OG Rose, I wanted to stop and talk with him.
He's in Virginia.
But
I know where everyone is.
Do you?
Yeah.
OG. We had an OG friend in the chat earlier. They must have left.
Yeah.
Who was it? I can't remember their name.
Yeah, but many more to come, and I don't know. We might be able to see some people in the Indiana / Midwest region, like after or like right around Midwest area as well. So
You are working hard, buddy. Man, yeah, we'll have to see when you come through. I mean, I would love to have you to my house. We'll see what my wife says. She's always been she's slowly softening to TLC kind of people. Some people have been here. Who's been here so far? So my friend Sarah has been here, who isn't super active. I've known her from before all this, actually. We met Sam in real life, Sam and his wife. My wife and I did. We hung out with them together, which was fun. In my home, though, Father Eric's been here. We actually recorded a video
Nice.
here in my house, and Jacob's been here.
Did
And
you-
Joseph Lambrecht has been here because he just lives outside the city.
Nice. Nice. Did you bring your family to the last event, or are you bringing them to this event?
No. No, so they're coming to this. They're not going to really, they're going to be in Chicago. They're not probably going to come to the event. My wife may come to, she's going to be at some things. Like there's a thing happening Thursday before the event that my wife will come to, like a dinner. And then I don't know if she'll come to any of the, she might come to some of the things. I don't know. Like she's heard of, I think, actually, I've never read a Rod Dreher book, and I think my wife has. I think she read Live Not by Lies because somebody told her to.
Yeah, maybe they would like it. You know, maybe they would like it.
She's much more of a, I mean, my wife is much more of a normie. You know, like she's
Of course, muggles don't exist, though.
yeah. She is like everyone else in TLC, where she's like, "What the hell are you saying? Like, what are you even talking about right now?"
Yep.
And so I don't know how much of the conference she'll come to, and also my kids will be there, or at least some of them. So I don't know if they will come to some of the conference or not. And my son is hard to track because he's older and kind of running around doing his thing. I don't even know if he'll come. He's hard to know where he is. I see neither his coming nor his going.
The prodigal son, perhaps something of the sort.
Yeah, he's not much of a prodigal. He's just
I don't know. I'm also probably not familiar enough with the story. Like he's like going out doing things, and then he comes back, and you're like, you welcome with open arms.
I mean, the prodigal is more rebellious, right? He's like, give me my inheritance now. Like essentially, as Tim Keller said, like more or less it's saying like, I wish you were dead. Just give me the inheritance so I can go live my life apart and away from you. That isn't really my son. My son is really, he's a sweet, sweet boy, but he's very distracted. Like I'm pretty sure he has, I mean, part of it's being, 17, but he's also, and he's my son. And so he's distracted, but he's a sweetie, but often he'll be distracted. And so then he does annoying things being distracted, but then he's a very like tactile, touching, like always wanting to hug and just like, I love you. I love you. I love you. And like when you're annoyed with him, it's like, okay, I'm not great. I'm happy you love me. Clean up your shit, please. That's how you can show me you love me.
That's you.
Nate, you can come in at any time and talk to us about end times and eschatology.
I didn't hear your intro at all. But I saw your title, and I figured I might have played a part.
So there's definitely some of it.
I
mean, there's so many. There are aspects of it right now that I like. Even, I obviously wasn't privy. To conversations that like you and Sherry had. But if I had to guess, and this is all just guessing, and I love Sherry, so I'm just guessing, I think part of her slow goodbye has to do with this.
Yeah. I did talk to Sherry, and she hasn't said that that's the case.
Okay.
She her reasons that she gave were other reasons, and she was very clear to me that it had nothing to do with me.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think it necessarily does per se, but I think, well, whatever. I don't know. I don't need to talk about that now.
Slack agrees with you. On the way to Estuary in the car, Slack told me that
she assured me that we are friends. She assured me that
we are definitely friends. There's no question about that. But she may not. I mean, to some degree, she may not be comfortable with the direction that I've taken the conversation on Grail Country.
She told me the reason she left was mostly Luke. That it was pretty much Luke.
Yeah, it wasn't. I was. Yeah, she told me that in confidence, so I wasn't really going to say that.
She actually told me to spread the word. She said, "Look out for Luke Thompson because he is trouble."
You know what? Interestingly, so PBK, I think this is fine because it's so long ago. PVK told me once privately.
By the way, did you see what PVK's video is about this morning?
Yeah, that's part of what.
It's so. Yeah, so it's like
quick.
I started watching it. By the way, I jumped off. I was watching that, and then I saw that you were streaming, and so I jumped off of PVK's video.
So I do want to get all your thoughts on that, but first I want to just say that other thing that it made me think of is having it be all my fault and Sherry leaving. PVK did tell me that early OG rando days. So he told me this probably because I don't know how old all this is now. 7 years? How old is it? Anyhow, but he said that someone contacted him privately initially, like really early on, and essentially told him to be wary of me and that he shouldn't like talk to me about things because I'm not who I say I am and I have like a lot of different things going on. Essentially somebody like was trying to poison the well of his relationship with me, and then he didn't tell me that until like a couple years, or like it was a while after he heard it, but he's just like, just want you to know. And I'm like, well, I don't know who that is. But I'm kind of curious. I'm like, what could you even be talking about? Like what don't people in TLC know about me? I mean, there's private things they don't know, but like, I don't know. It's just interesting. It's funny. Anyhow, it's just a funny little side story. What do you think of?
I think here's what I'll say about this. I really don't want to dwell on that because I think that like first of all, I was surprised to find that there was still a thing because I thought that my impression, especially after Northwestuary, seeing you guys together, it seemed like whatever that thing had been that I was
talking about me and Sherry.
Yeah, I thought that was over and done with. I really did thought that. I thought that was just like completely a thing of the past. I was kind of surprised that it was still lingering. I personally still have hope that whatever it is can be resolved. Sherry's still going to be around, and I love you both. And that's all I have to. And I don't want to talk about it anymore,
right?
Because that's really all I can say. Because I'm not going to pick sides. Because I really do love you both. And I don't want to get involved in whatever it is between you.
Okay, the last thing I will say on that is I think sometimes I think of it as exclusion and embrace, and like David Bentley Hart's article on election, that I think election is for future inclusion. Election is never an either or thing. And the way I think about it is like the icon of St. Paul and St. Peter, where essentially like they're kissing, they're like face to face, but clearly they had their disagreements and went separate ways 4 times. And I think that's okay. I think you can have intentional separations and meaningful disagreements for a time while maintaining, and this is part of what my earlier monologue was, while maintaining the commitment to the deeper relationality.
Yeah.
What did you think about PVK's video?
I only saw the very beginning of it. It's interesting that it's a teal video because I had just sent I think I sent you a copy of it too. I found there was this essay by an anthropologist named Paul Leslie who was part of the same Girard group with Renee Girard, and that Peter Thiel was also in. And it was really this kind of fascinating history of like Peter Thiel and how he reads Girard. Versus what I agree with the author's reading of Girard himself. I think that Thiel does some strange things with Girard politically that don't really make sense on Girardian principles. And but here's the thing is the article is also very charitable by giving credit to Thiel for being a very deep, thoughtful, good, earnest, good faith person. And so Thiel is interesting because I think he makes some dangerous errors that lead to push things in a bad direction. And he may end up inadvertently making things worse because of the direction he takes things. But I think I still think he's operating in good faith. Mm-hmm. So he's not somebody I would ever say, don't listen to, or that shouldn't be dialogued with, because he's definitely a very sophisticated thinker. And it's surprising, like the first part of the video he was playing, where he was talking about his like anti-Calvinist theology. We agree on that. Like that's like I think determinism is the biggest lie of them all. I don't think there's
Yeah.
anything deterministic about the way God has set this universe up.
Yeah, he went into that because that was his Calvinist whip, right?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
he's right about that. I think God's going to make us clean. I'm going to put it this way: God is going to make us clean up our own mess.
Yes. Well, that's part of our own suffering and maturity. Is like as we are God's children, learning to clean our own room.
Why would a good father isn't going to do it for you?
Yes.
He's going to set up the conditions that will perhaps lead you to do it, but he's not going to do it for you.
You're triggering me.
I'm sorry.
I think it depends. It depends on how old the child is, right? If you're an infant wallowing in your own poop diaper.
Well, I suppose. Well, that's yes. I think I'm glad you said that because I think that like that kind of deterministic worldview effectively infantilizes us, but we're not.
If you want God to clean up your mess, you are a baby.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've noticed that over time, my autopilot has gotten worse over time, and it's just like, of course, God.
Or you read the book of James, and you realize that you need to repent in ash and dust, because it's through grace which we are made into the type of creature that desires to clean up his own mess.
Nobody is saying it isn't grace.
Yeah, I don't.
Yes, you are. You anti-Calvinists. You guys are going to make me look bad in front of my guests.
Also, I want to say, listen, I said this I don't know. So count apotheosis. I don't know what's going on, but like in the chat, seriously, I made admins. I'll go make some more. I need to set up community rules, because I've seen some people have started doing that, and I'm going to have my own community rules. Name calling not allowed. If you call somebody a name, it's a timeout. Don't do that. So, all right.
Good rule.
Just bad faith stuff. We can have hard, meaningful disagreements. We can even have passionate disagreements. But like name calling.
Look at Mo and I just now. Like we have completely opposite opinions, and there was no hostility.
Luke, can I name call you out in public right now? Is there a way to name call?
You can call. Yeah, you can call me out.
Name call submission request submit.
We'll call you, Luke.
There has to be a way to name call. I've got Luke's cell phone number. I could name call him in a private.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. What was that? That was like, what tier was that? I think you pay me $20 a month for that.
25. My wife counts.
Nice.
End times. How about those end times?
Yeah, I mean, it is. So that's something. That's one of the interesting things that Teal said that I was talking about in my monologue. Is he was essentially saying, "Oh, sorry, my daughter's telling me to hush because I woke her up with my impassioned yelling." But he was saying, like, essentially, it's just funny. He was talking about like New World Order stuff, and essentially this threat of nuclear bombing, and people are going to have bombs, and then that's going to be the thing that's used for so we need a one world government to stop these bombs. We have to. But then I brought up Dr. Shane Wood's idea from a Christian perspective that self-preservation is the grammar of evil. And so Christians should not support anyone who would use safetyism and the fear of of not having self-preservationism for
Here's the thing. Here's the weird thing about Teal too. He's also aware of the fact that Antichrist will be promising peace prior to bringing the world into war. And so he has to realize the irony of what he's doing. He's trying to use and I've actually heard him in other conversations where he explicitly talks about how fear will be used as a tool in order to get everybody on board. But he's using fear as a tool to get everybody on board. It's like, does he see that he's doing this or not? I don't know. I think there's some evidence that he does know what he's doing, and that he has a tendency to use Girard cynically for his own gain.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps. I don't know. I mean,
I know JD Vance does for sure. That's why I have the major issue I do with JD Vance. Is like he used Girardian thought in order for his own political gain. That's what he does with it.
I mean, that's like, I have a hard time believing that. I can't.
But, no, that's not. There's nothing to believe. It's like what his entire stance toward immigration is a complete manipulation of mimetic process in order to raise his boat in the political arena.
Yeah, I'm not saying that I have a hard time believing.
You can be in favor of sane immigration policy and border security without being a person who is deliberately casting as many negative dispersions on immigrants as possible,
right?
Doing it in the most dehumanizing way possible,
right?
And when you do it that way, and you're a Girardian, I know that there's a consciousness to what you're doing, and you're not just doing it innocently and unconsciously. You know what the fuck you're doing.
Or you don't know yet as you ought to know. Like you haven't realized, because that's the problem with Antichrist, right? And be careful, you who judge, for in your judgment you condemn yourself. And that's what I was reading from the Epistle of James.
Yeah.
Like we're not called to judge the law. We're called to be doers of the law. And so whenever you're doing that, what I'm doubtful of when I said I have a hard time believing that isn't the facts that you're saying. I'm not doubting any of these specific things necessarily about Vance. I don't know, but it's hard for me to believe that people are consciously, willfully manipulative. Like I don't.
Yeah.
It's very hard for me to wrap my head around that. Go ahead, Al.
I just wanted to say humans are dumb. That's all.
Dumb?
Yeah, this is why I like artificial intelligence, because the amount of intelligence out there is very bad. I was listening to like a clip on the internet, and they were talking about AI. It was Fox News, and I just hit stop, and I told Kim this morning, I was like, these guys are so dumb. And if I get on the camera and like this, it's like I don't have my suit on, and humans are so dumb that they think that if I'm not wearing a suit, I'm not on authority. It's like humans are just so dumb. It's wild.
So true. That's actually can you guys hear me all right?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's actually something I remind people all the time. So it doesn't matter whether you believe that Dunning-Kruger has been disproven or not. The real lesson from Dunning-Kruger isn't that newbies think they know everything. It's that these elitists are way worse. What we've seen, and this goes to both your points, if you put three people on stage, one's a total BSer, one is the foremost student of the foremost expert, and the other one is the expert, guess who the audience is going to think is the elite, the expert? It's going to be the bullshitter, because a good student will have a certain amount of, humbleness as a student. So Dunning-Kruger showed us the problem with society today are these elites who think they can't do wrong, even when they keep failing over and over again. And so the way I think this ties into what we're talking about here is the hardest thing for a human being to do is to hold two conflicting ideas in their mind at once. This was proven by mid-2000s science.
It's an F. Scott Fitzgerald quote. Yeah.
Oh, well, actually, it was proven by science in the I can't remember the guy's name, starts with a T. But the idea here is we flatten. This is Ian McGilchrist again. Why we flatten? We flatten because we can't hold conflicting ideas in mind at once. So we can't understand that we may be right, but we may be wrong. We have to go all in on one thing. You get what I mean? And I think that's where we're failing at, right? Nowadays. So we don't have enough,
We don't know how to actually identify experts and like lift them up and give them microphones and say, hey, let's listen to you.
That's what I say about gurus, right? Gurus are the hardest. Like, okay, for example, I have a buddy of mine just the other day. We were railing against some of these gurus, and the example he gave was like Mark Manson or Ryan Holiday. But I don't think they're bad. I think they're captured by their audience. Their audience don't want to be told, dude, do you want to be whole, as Jesus said? Well, pick up your mat and walk, right? So they give them these stoic platitudes, when in reality, Stoicism is just Greek Buddhism, right? What did Nietzsche say? Using science to circumvent Rome, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I thought it was funny. I've never heard that before. Stoicism is just Greek Buddhism.
It is. Yeah, we've just realized that in the last few years. For years when I was studying it, I was told I was crazy to suggest that Pyrrhon of Elis, even though he went on campaign with Alexander through India, there was a language barrier and they were only there 18 months. But we dug up a temple a few years ago, I think 2021, that proves that we were wrong by hundreds of years. Right? That in fact, the Indians and the Greeks were interacting for years. But see, there you go, the conflicting. None of my teachers would hold that as a possibility that maybe Pyrrhon of Elis and his Pyrrhonism was influenced by the Chettiscoti in India. You get what I mean? But they wouldn't hold that.
I do
Yeah,
want to
you're-
respond to Tayo. Tayo said reducing humans to intelligence is dumb, and I want to agree with him. Like, you know, like we are all created in the image of God. It just doesn't mean everybody should be handed, you know, the microphone in front of all the world, or it should be the one who's holding the steering wheel. You know, it's so yeah. Like there are some people are more fit to do some things. Like different people were made for different purposes, all valuable in the grand scheme of things. But we lie to ourselves because we're so weak and have such fragile egos that we can't actually see what we're blind to our own weaknesses. I was plagued by this for years. I would see what's wrong with everyone else in the world, and I would see what's great about me, and I was just blind to how great other people were and how weak I was. And it's because I was so like weak. I had such a fragile ego, right? And this is like everyone's being gripped by this kind of blindness. And I mean, maybe I'm biased, but I mean, it's huge. It's a huge problem. I wish I could say I like Trump. It's huge.
Okay, so we're all aware of the fact that we have a huge problem in terms of the reliability of our information. We have a problem in terms of having reliable expertise. All that is true. But the question, I want to bring this thing back to the thing that Luke asked about Antichrist, because it's like there are two, like Antichrist is conceived of by people in also in ways that are opposite. The way that a trad Catholic conceives of Antichrist, a trad Catholic's idea of Antichrist is that it's going to be someone who is creating a false ecumenical unity and to create a one world religion that will unite all peoples and subvert the gospel, right? That's be kind of a trad Cath, and I think a lot of evangelicals would kind of like line up with that notion as well. Mm-hmm. I actually think that Antichrist is that you should take the Christ part of Antichrist more seriously, and where I see the threat of Antichrist is in a false version of Christianity that rejects its own true spirit in favor of another spirit. Quite specifically, we stop following the spirit that announces himself as the God of love, and we start following the spirit of the will to power. Sorry, Al.
No, hey,
I don't.
All kidding aside, like when you guys were asking about who you can trust, well, that's a great example. You can go and look. Like I've been studying Nietzsche for 35 years, and I follow the syllabi of these courses. And 50% of professors teaching Nietzsche are wrong. They don't understand it. And the will to power is a great example. He didn't mean power the way the postmodernists see it. What he means is it's closer in German to Macht, right? The measure for speed in the air. It's what propels you, if that makes more sense. So yeah, you will never insult me, but I love to share how wrong people have about Nietzsche, because in fact, his critique of Christianity was what you just said, Nate. These people who are claiming to be Christians, but don't live to any of the tenets or the ethos, right?
Right. No, yeah, about my sense has always been that, like, okay, so first of all, it's like if all of okay. Now I'm gonna get myself into hot water.
Oh.
If all of the nations are going to turn against Israel before the end, which is clearly what the prophecies say, unless you want to strain the meaning of the text, then that means we have to too. Now, for most of my lifetime, the idea that the United States would abandon Israel was unthinkable. Absolute, like categorically impossible. That's one of the reasons that I doubted the eschatological framework from the church I was brought up in. I thought it was absurd on the face of it. They always tried to, here's the thing, they would always try to find excuses for why the United States would somehow be the one nation that would stand behind Israel, even though the scriptures clearly say all the nations. So if it's all the nations, then it has to be us too. So Israel has to be left standing alone.
This depends on what you mean by Israel.
Which is to strain the meaning of the text. Because why does this? If the text doesn't mean Israel, then why does it have all the geographical indicators?
Can I point out though? Like I just went down this deep dive recently when Cruz kind of flubbed about So I went in a deep dive, and speaking of which, like even looking from the Catholic perspective, Genesis 12. Is this what you're speaking? Or are you only talking about Revelation?
I'm not. I'm talking about all of the scriptures that talk about
mentions of Israel,
the gathering of the nations against Israel, Zechariah 12-14.
But what do you mean by nation? Like that's the thing. Like this is where I think we fail with exegesis, right? Because remember, I think this is why there's the quote that says that God brought the faith to the Jews because it was a simple language. And I don't think it was an insult. It just meant because there wasn't a lot of characters. And maybe he was afraid of this confusion. Because when we translate it from Goy or Goyim, it becomes something different, right? Israel, instead of being the faithful believers as it was in the early Torah, right? The pagans versus the believers. That's Israel versus the other nations. Same as chapter 12, where it says, I will make you a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great. I wonder if we can actually read that as believers in God, right? Because remember, this is just after the rainbow covenant with Noah, right? As well, right? So it is considering maybe that the nation of Israel does include the faithful, even if they aren't Jews.
Well, this is being able to hold two contradictory ideas as well. There's all these possible interpretations of a word.
It's obvious to me that there's nothing contradictory about it. The use of but the thing is, you have to remember who's grafted in. The Gentiles are grafted in. So yes, Israel also refers to the Christian church because we are grafted into Israel doesn't cease being Israel because we are grafted in.
Can I also mention that that's also missed in exegesis? Because remember, this is ancient horticulture with the olive, right? You do understand that when that was a natural way for an olive tree to be raised and grown was to graft in the branches, and it became part of the original plant. So I wonder again, right, that even though they're not, so I wonder if we're missing that. Do you get what I mean? The fact that yes, it is a graft, but it becomes part of the original tree, sharing the same.
That would make us more properly Jews.
Noahide then. Yes, no, what about Noahide in chapter 9 of Genesis? We predate that.
As he just said.
Yeah.
I wonder. This is what Kezi is talking about. So something I do want to talk about, because I am gonna shut this down at 9 because I have to cut up a melon for my daughter and do other things. This came up in my local estuary, so I want to talk about this, and I'll send it to my estuary people for them to not watch or listen to. But so supporting Israel, and RJ said this earlier, and acknowledging physical and like the people group of Israel is not necessarily equivalent to geopolitically America supporting Israel, especially militarily. I mean, because I would argue that it's not as a non-interventionist, and I would say like we should mind our own damn business.
So you know what? Inaction is still action.
The Hebrew word for doubt is the lack of action.
You are still and so you have to evaluate the consequences of that. What the consequences of that are, and here's the truth of the matter is that Israel, as a nation of 7 million people, with basically the entire world against it, if we do in fact stop supporting them, the only reason they would not be defeated is if God actually is on their side.
Well, I mean, that's like the 7 Days War stuff, right? But I just don't. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, can I throw a wrench quickly and say y'all might be missing the big point here? What is actually the most persecuted religion on the planet now?
I don't know that.
Christianity, right? So could we also read this as when Christians are being, right? Same as Jesus said, he said, expect to be persecuted. I can't remember his exact, what do you guys think of that idea? Maybe we're missing it completely.
Where are the nations gathering for war against Christians?
But again, well, okay, but let's not talk, again, you're stuck on the Revelation. I won't go into that because
That's not just Revelation.
where else does it say that? Where else does it
It's
say
also
that?
Ezekiel 38 and 39. It's
And Isaiah, but what was that talk?
14.
That was Babylon, and Babylon's fallen, right? See, that's the superposition of Revelation, right? It can be read as history.
Babylon hasn't fallen. I mean,
okay,
honestly,
well then
I
that's
think
where we differ. Then,
we're Babylon.
Okay, so I want to. Michael came in. I want to hear what Michael has to say. He's muting himself because he's got some sound, and I don't. Somebody else needs to open up a stream on the current geopolitical situation and what it means to support Israel, because that is an interesting topic. Anyhow, Michael. Sorry.
Yeah. So I just put out. I know Al watched the video I put out pretty recently, and what he was saying about like this need that we have for certainty in certain things, or our inability to hold things loosely, is a huge part of the problem. Because it's like on the one hand, yeah, sure, there is these like questions about like, what is a nation? What does it mean? Does it mean the land? Does it mean the people? Are the people who are living in rejecting Christ or whatever, are they connected to this thing or whatever? And I mean, and the thing is that if anyone's trying to like make a decision, say, okay, well, I'm certain about this one point, and that allows you to have a clarity on it, but you don't know if you're right. You're clinging to that certainty so that you can make a decision, or so that you can plot a path forward, when it's like, obviously we have to assume we might be wrong about all this stuff. And if we assume we're wrong about all this stuff, then we should treat the nation of Israel, the modern nation, the Jewish people, all of these things with respect. We shouldn't write it off, like, because what if we're wrong? Like that's the main thing. I mean, like, and I think it is ridiculous, like what Nate's saying. It strains the text so much to think, what was going on there. And I think you could even I was just thinking about this morning. There is this spiritual battle, these archons and whatnot, and that was the way that people understood things for a lot of time. So that nations had princes, and then we enter into modernity, and our nations don't have princes anymore. They are geographical places with populations and some sort of identity based on that connection. And in that scenario, where that's like the normal understanding, God miraculously reestablished a nation called Israel according to like the modern understanding of what a nation is. And so as long as we're talking about like within this current frame, and it's like, I don't know, I think that this whole thing could be, we might have a shadow of an eschaton or whatever, like World War II was in many ways. And there might be another cycle of that. We could go on forever. It could be in 5,000 years, we might call this planet Israel, and there's going to be other planets that are, called Rome and Babylon and Egypt or whatever, like, who knows? But it's like, as far as it concerns us, it's like, that's the thing people need to realize is like, what is your drive to pinpoint some certainty on this issue? And I think most of the time it's so that you can figure out who is not my neighbor, because that's the person you don't have to love.
Well said.
You also need to figure out how to love your neighbor. That would be good. The eternal question.
I have something to say. I've been brewing.
Yeah, go, buddy.
I've been trying to connect all these things, and as I've been saying, and it kind of to love your neighbor, and the unity and multiplicity, where everyone has, like Gavin was saying, that each person has like, what does it mean to be Christ-like? You know, it's not to follow the dogma or to like get an exact to be an exact copy, but it's to be you and to be what you are most what are you what you can best be, you know, like what is kind of your God-given purpose, as it were. Like the Christ in you is when you are most you, not when you are like most conforming to a group or whatever it may be. And but you know, it's like, hopefully you follow what I mean there. And that brings me back to like the distinction that of the Antichrist versus, and also the vertical versus horizontal power, I think is maybe a better way I've heard you describe it, Nate. I like that way. Like the horizontal can kind of be thought of as the will to power, maybe in the bad sense.
Horizontal evolution toward the will to power, yeah.
Yeah, but then maybe you can also think of like a vertical will to power or something as like the what is properly meant, you know, or something like, and where that power comes from, like the mystical apophatic proper relationship or something. And that makes me think about the gospel of Jesus versus the gospel about Jesus, you know, like it's like to do the thing versus to but anyway, as it relates to,
well, the revelation of the cross is that it's love that creates the world and not power.
but you could also conceive of love as like divine power, right?
It's a
like,
love
I remember
that's what you guys
can say
forget.
that love reveals itself as the true power, you can say.
Yeah. So like, but yeah, basically that, yeah, the vertical, like to get your power given by grace from above in sort of way via your right relationship and like participation in the vertical. Like,
I want to bring this back to to this eschatological political context, though, because it seems to me like here's the thing is like the Christian impulse to be willing to set yourself aside and be willing to die is that becomes when you ask it of others, it becomes a perversion. And it seems to me that what Americans want is to make Israel a sacrifice for their own guilt over the things that they've actually done and to die for them. And you don't get to do that. And that's a perversion of Christian values. It's not a Christian value.
Who's trying to die for them? What are the pronouns?
American Christians who would join in anti-Israel, pro-Hamas protests. Those people.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm not. I really do think we would need a longer stream on this because we have 7 minutes. But I do
and it's
think,
about as contentious as anything is.
No, it is, and that's my larger mosaic vision is:
I
can
can-
we talk about these things in a way that is arguments for the sake of heaven without dividing into ideological conflict?
I could
Because
launch a stream over on Jacob's channel if y'all want.
Okay, yeah, go. That would be great. Because what I would say is I am very much like the only time that I was not a unconscious, just born into it, sincerity culture neocon and interested in politics was with Ron Paul. And I'm still a big Ron Paul guy. And I still think a lot of this stuff has to do with blowback and interventionism. And so America has this like patriarchal world power guilt for how we've been global police and through our foreign policy have created this damn disaster. And then we just want to walk away. But like at some point,
hey Luke, I have a recommended remedy for the libertarian peacenik part of you.
Okay.
Watch the introduction to Patton. Just watch the introduction to Patton and remind yourself of what conservatism used to look like.
Yeah, I understand some of that, but one of my larger ideas, it's not just like the peacenik libertarian thing. It's technological babble, and all of this is also built on systems of scale and technology that I think are ultimately going to lead to collapse. And I believe, like Terrence Malick in A Hidden Life is the Christian life. That's what you do.
Yeah,
you opt out.
Yeah, you can personally. The problem is that the game we play at the level of the nations is a different game. And what is a virtue for you as an individual when you play it out at scale is actually evil.
Yeah, I mean that is the larger question for me,
Yeah.
because like it's the C.S. Lewis thing, is sometimes the best way forward is to figure out where you went wrong and go back.
Yeah.
And that's what I would say with all this military industrial complex than the state of the world. We've
I'm not
gone
defending
very
the
far.
military industrial complex. There's something in between defending the military industrial complex and realizing that sometimes you have to fight.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it's I mean, it's obviously why you need a multiplicity, because like you know, and America is great being you know, the land of liberty and stuff like that, and I see it as almost like my responsibility, you know, not like I'm going to end up in the military at this point, but like as some to protect the plurality of America, so that people who are pacifists can live according to their convictions in without fear of you know, being killed. Because when, you know, because when those, like, you know, you have the Anabaptist tradition, they're always on the run, they're always getting decimated. But it's like, well, once they get a chance to flourish a little bit, you don't know what their culture and how they will blossom as a version of Christianity, unless they get the space to grow.
A stable liberal order that allows people like
Yeah.
Luke to go Luke and I to go back to being just like, you know, Christian anarchists that don't want to be involved, and the Anabaptists to do their Anabaptist thing. But it requires a stable liberal order. As long as that stable liberal order is under threat, neocon Nate's back.
We have to.
Yeah.
The problem for me is, and then I'll let other people have some fast last words, is that I'm concerned about the conflation of covert military industrial bullshit happening with all this. And I do think that if America truly was, like you said, a unity of nations, a gathering of the nations, then you're going to have the United States where all the states, and even within the states, there's a lot of different diversity, and we don't have a fucking standing army that you can just command at the drop of the hat to go across and do all this world policing stuff, where we have the biggest military the world has ever seen. That's not a gathering of the nations where you actually have a true authority and a unity to come together to go fight someone. That is a machine military that you are using to control and fear the world. And I'm not behind that. It's terrible. That's my last word.
No, there are aspects of that I would wholeheartedly agree with. I just think that there's something in between.
Yeah. All right, let's go around. Anybody ready to go next? Or you don't have to either.
I could say some last words.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's you know, to particularly Revelations, I'm a little less comfortable like with when it comes to political discussions and like and such, but it's also timely and relevant. But particularly with Revelation and stuff, I think, you know, when the second coming of Jesus and such, I think it's good that we're talking about this stuff, you know. And I think that like it is a good question. Is the TLC capable of discussing the book of Revelation and politics and stuff like this? Because, and this is, you know, this is the files which will test TLC, and hopefully we can endure the refining flames. Yes, this is all.
Nice. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
Mike, Al, Gavin, Nate, anybody?
I'll throw one thing for further thought out there. You know, I think as far as it's just wanting to look at the outward appearance of things and stuff like that. You know, consider the story of Joseph at the end of Genesis, because up until the point when he reveals his identity to his brothers, he's Egyptian, and it very much looks like this is a rise of a Antichrist. I mean, it's really the establishment of the first empire, but it was initially, he did it to, he was tyrannical, but in some ways, but he did it for the good of the whole world. And then it was really only when that system that he implemented got corrupted later on that you have the trouble of the Exodus. So
Right.
they look very similar, but there is a big difference.
Okay, so JD Vance is Joseph. Next. I'm just kidding. I'm
Hopefully.
just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Better, hopefully, that would be better than the alternative.
Okay, Gavin, Al.
I'm streaming to 2 places right now. You guys can go to Jacob Vetrici's
Ooh,
YouTube
to
channel.
continue.
Give
Woo!
me a link if you guys. I don't know if I know everybody in here, and that's what I'll leave it at. I mentioned the Dunning-Kruger. The real lesson of Dunning-Kruger is that our elites are the problem. So I argue we don't need more elites. We need to practice our own discernment. That's what we're failing at here. We need to respect critical thinking and thinking, period. So that's my takeaway from it. If we need more people who want to wrestle with this themselves, not one person that's going to hand down the answers.
Yeah, all good words. All right. We did it. An argument for the sake of heaven. All right. We'll see you guys. Thank you
See ya.
all. Be
Yeah.
Thank you.
peace.